I mentioned in a video a few weeks ago that something pretty big had manifested for me towards the end of December. So I wanted to share exactly what it is, how it all happened, and most importantly, exactly what I did. A little law of attraction story time. And to sort of preface this video, I'm not sharing this in any way as a show-off type of thing. I've noticed that I sometimes hold back on sharing certain things that I've manifested for fear of coming off in that type of way where I'm like showing off or something like that. But the truth is, I really just want to show you what's possible. So that's what this video is about, because the best way to do that is through personal examples. So I decided that this year I'm going to share more of the things I've manifested, how I did it, how it worked, how it showed up. And when I share these, I want it to be proof of what's possible. My hope is that this fuels you and inspires you and shows you real life ways that things can manifest and show up, and processes that I personally use to get there. So let's get into the whole story of what happened, because I honestly couldn't have even imagined how this would all come together. This was a good one. And there was one major thing that really stood out to me. But before we get into the story, really quickly, if you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Mary Kate, and I'm a mindset coach and manifesting expert focused on getting you transformational results. My whole channel is all about manifesting, the law of attraction, with meditations and more, where I share the tools you need to get the results you want. I post brand new videos every single Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe and also hit that bell notification so you can be notified whenever I post a new video. And before we get into the story time, go ahead and hit that little thumbs up button below. It takes just a quick second. It lets me know that you're watching and getting value from these videos. So once you do that, let's get right into it. So I'm actually going to start off straight away and just tell you what I manifested right off the bat, so you don't have to keep guessing or wondering till the end. I'm going to go ahead and insert a photo right here. But how this all happened is such a crazy story, and there were actually a few things that I did that I think really made this manifest quickly that I want to share. So here's what happened. For a while now, maybe about a year or more, I had been thinking about and considering getting a new car. It really wasn't a huge priority, as the car I had was already working fine and it was reliable. And honestly, I'm one of those people that when I buy a car, I'm in it for the long run. I will drive it until it starts to become a problem, because why not? I'm really not a materialistic things type of person. I'm not very much into things or cars. I'm not really into fancy cars or fancy bags or designer clothes or anything like that. I'm not like a things person. I'm more of an experience girl. I prefer splurging on vacations or skincare or workout classes or concerts or things like that. I like experiences, which is funny, and this makes this even more ironic because I ended up with a luxury car, even though that generally isn't something that I care about. I mean, everyone has their own preferences on what they splurge on. There's no right or wrong. We all just like what we like. But typically, like, fancy cars and designer things just like aren't my thing. But experiences, yeah. And I feel like it's important to the story that you know that, so let me continue. I knew that I wanted an SUV because I like bigger cars. So as the new year was approaching, I had this sort of weird kind of inspiration or urge to start to at least get clear on what car I wanted and narrow it down so that whenever I was ready to make the move, I already knew what I wanted. So I did my endless online research. If you give me Google, I will research things until I know every detail and pro and con. I will read every single review. I don't know if it's my type A personality or my Virgo coming out, but if you give me Google, I'm going to search everything I can find. So that was stage one. I felt this kind of weird urge or pull, like I said, to narrow down what car I wanted. And honestly, did it make sense at the time that this was important? No. Like I said, my car was working fine. And it was the busiest time of year with holidays. But still, there is something that I have learned, and that is, whenever I get those kind of strange gut instincts or urges to do something, I have learned to follow them, because I've gotten to the point where I trust myself completely, and I know that when I get those little downloads, that is my intuition leading me somewhere, so I now know to willingly follow. So after all of my research, I narrowed it down to 4 cars. And I even went to a few dealerships, because in my endless Google searching, I read so many times that December is actually one of the best months and best times of year to get a car for so many different reasons. So after going to these 4 dealerships, I narrowed it down to 2 cars. And honestly, that felt good. I felt kind of complete. I felt like, okay, I now know what I want, and I sort of just let it go. Feeling good that I had kind of followed where I felt led. I had clarity and kind of knew what I wanted now. And knowing that now, whenever I was ready to go buy a car, it was as easy as those two choices. I had done all of my research and I had already test drove them. I felt prepared. Like I said, I felt like my job was complete, and I sort of just surrendered and I let go because it wasn't something I was desperate for. It wasn't something I strongly cared about. My car was working fine. I just kind of followed this weird gut instinct to go do something, and I did it. So I was pleasantly neutral and I felt completely at ease. And then over the next few weeks, several strange circumstances and situations started popping up. Some good, and then some not so great, not so ideal. I mean, there's a lot that happened, but here's kind of just like brief little bullet points. I got a big unexpected check in the mail. Fun thing. Had one of my best months ever with work. Amazing. So many manifestations were showing up for me in such fun and weird ways. And those were all the fun things that were happening in the weeks that followed. But those same few weeks, I think I got 2 separate flat tires. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 because I've had at least 2 within the last few months, but I can't remember if it was 2 in the same month or if 1 was in November. So that's never fun. And also the check emissions light started coming on constantly in my other car, and I even brought it to get it looked at, and it was bizarre. No one could figure out what was going on. Like everything was checking out normal. These lights just kept coming on. And then I had other sensor things start going crazy on my car too. And also at one point I completely lost the keys to the car. Just gone. I could not find them. I think I couldn't drive it for like a whole day because I couldn't find the keys. And there were lots of other little small things here and there. But the one thing that kept coming up over and over again was car stuff. But here is one thing that I've mastered. Well, not mastered, but I've gotten pretty good at over the last few years. And I think that this might be one of the most important things that you will ever need in order to manifest. So I really want to share this with you. And that is a sense of emotional neutrality, of not being thrown all over the place chaotically when something you perceive as like bad happened. And when something bad does happen, not letting it have too much meaning. Because as cliche as it may sound, sometimes things need to kind of fall apart in order for other circumstances to come together. I mean, if you really think about it, if you had stayed with that first, boyfriend or girlfriend, how would you have ever met the person you're with now? Or what would your life look like today? Do you see how things that may have felt devastating as a teenager when you broke up with your first boyfriend, do you see how it ultimately led you to the life you have now, to the things you want? I know that's kind of a weird example, but that just popped into my head. But things are always being rearranged for you to ultimately have what you want. So you can look at any bad situation as, okay, that happened. That's just being rearranged for me to have something I actually want. So in the case of all of those things seemingly going wrong with my car, I looked at it from a place of neutrality, of curiosity, saying, isn't that interesting? Another car thing. And I chose to see it as a situation that was being rearranged for something better. And this is truly life-changing when you start to incorporate this emotional neutrality. Not only does it just feel better, but when bad things pop up, because life happens and things happen, it's going to give you a sense of power to be able to look at it and sort of laugh and say, isn't that interesting that just happened? And it'll allow you to move forward with confidence that it's all working out and being rearranged in your favor. Stop making the bad stuff pull you down, and instead don't attach so much meaning. If this is resonating with you, please comment below, because if there is one thing I hope you take away from the video, this is it. This emotional neutrality and the confidence that it's always working out in your favor, because that alone will change your life. I guarantee it. Okay, but back to the story. I could go on tangents all day, but I never let any of the bad stuff mean too much. I observed it for what it was and I moved on. I invite you to do the same. But then I started noticing that the 2 cars I had narrowed it down to, I started seeing ads for all over the place. I generally have never seen these companies run ads, but all of a sudden they were everywhere and they were constant. And then I also started seeing these 2 cars everywhere. And even my best friend mentioned that she had gotten one of these 2 cars I was looking at, and she was telling me all about it and telling me how much she loved it. And I do know that some of that focus of all those same cars I was seeing had to do with my reticular activating system, obviously pulling my focus towards them, which, if you're wondering what I was just talking about, the reticular activating system, I have tons of videos on it and how it works in manifesting. So I'm going to link that that down below for you if you want to watch those videos after this. But it's basically the part of your brain that you're going to want to use when it comes to manifesting because it pulls your focus towards whatever you're feeding it. But truly, it was almost laughable how often I started seeing these two cars. When I really hadn't even been caring or focusing on it, it wasn't something I was like intentionally manifesting right now. They just kept showing up. And then even more unexpected things started happening. The two dealerships that I had visited and narrowed it down to weeks ago, they started emailing me constantly, basically trying to get me to come, choose their cars. They both emailed me the same day within an hour of each other. I hadn't heard from them in weeks. So once again, my intuition kicked on and it urged me to go take a look at them both once again, just to narrow it down to one. It wasn't to buy it. It wasn't to do anything. It was just to narrow it down. I felt like the universe was kind of throwing me a clear sign to just pursue this a little bit further with the amount of downloads and guidance that kept coming through, with the amount of signs and signals. So I, of course, Googled some more. And then I went in and I finally narrowed it down to one. And while I had imagined I would just get the car eventually because I didn't need it right now, so many circumstances started to line up perfectly that it ended up happening now. Well, last month. And this is where it gets really, really fun because at this point, I wasn't even pursuing this car. I felt like it was pursuing me. I couldn't get away from it. Have you ever heard that phrase, what you seek is seeking you? This was a prime example of that quote. I felt like that car wanted me more than I wanted it. And here was where it all fell into place. Here's what happened. The dealership had these bonuses that they needed to hit before the new year. So they were dropping the price lower and lower and lower. And I truly just didn't care. So I persistently kind of refused their offers, said no thank you, until a number finally landed in my head where I decided if they offered to me at that number, it was meant to be. And I don't know where this number came from, but I woke up in the middle of the night one night and this number really kind of just stuck out to me. This number that was like very specific. And I sort of jokingly said to myself, okay, if they meet me at this seemingly random number that my brain decided to choose last night, then I'm gonna go for it. And the difference between that actual price of the car and that number that popped into my head was significant. So it didn't seem likely, it didn't even seem possible. And this right here is where the fun manifestation happened. Are you ready? So the salesman who I'd been working with was brand new. This would be his very first sale, his very first commission, and because of the new year, his very first bonus. And he also had a very supportive boss who wanted to see him succeed. So out of the blue one afternoon, he emailed me a final price sheet with the exact number in my head, and I bought the car right then and there that day. That right there was my sign. And the number that they gave me was unheard of. I mean, when I was filling out the paperwork for purchasing it, several people from the company were like flooding into the room over and over again, all asking me the same question because they had never seen a brand new model like this discounted like this. And they all wanted to know what I said or what I did. And the funny thing was, I didn't do or say anything. I let go. I let go some more. I let myself be guided. I let it work out for me in the best possible way. I followed urges and followed where I felt led. And then the rest worked itself out. That's manifestation. And my favorite part is that this wasn't just a manifestation win for me. It was a win for the salesperson who I was working with too. It was his first sale under his belt, his first bonus, his first of hopefully many, many more. And I wish him tons of success and abundance. It was like an avalanche of abundance for everyone. It worked out in everyone's best interest. So did I buy it? Yes. Does that mean it wasn't manifested? Of course not. Like I said, what was manifested was all of the situations and circumstances for it to happen in a way that I couldn't even explain or recreate or comprehend. That's why all those people were flooding into the room saying, how did you do it? That was the magic. Manifestation doesn't mean that you need to just be handed something for free or that something has to just show up out of thin air. That is such a false perception. That's why people are like, oh, that doesn't work. Well, of course not. No one handed me the keys for free. But manifestation means all of the situations, circumstances, people, places, and things all line up in such a way that you get to receive the things that you desire. Does that make sense? But I want to quickly end this video with the practical steps of what I essentially did so that you can sort of see what worked. I followed an urge that didn't make any logical sense to start researching and narrowing down the car that I wanted. I then followed the next urge to actually narrow it down further and go test drive them. I felt good. I surrendered. I let it just be. I didn't force anything. I didn't care. I just got the clarity and then I moved forward. I wasn't trying to rush anything. And there's also one subliminal I didn't talk about. There was one subliminal I did listen to this time. I'm going to go ahead and link it up here and down below for you. I do think it kind of helped me be in that neutral place. I don't think it was make or break, but it was just something important to note. But while I was in that surrendered state, I did use the subliminal while doing chores, doing things around the house, walking on the treadmill, things like that. Love to multitask with subliminals. And if that subliminal doesn't resonate with you, I'm going to actually link in the description box below a whole playlist of subliminals that you can try out. Sorry if the shot looks different. My camera battery just died, but we're back. So essentially my part was done. I got clear on what I wanted. I followed my intuition. I got into a place of emotional neutrality and ease. Well, things just started happening, both good and bad. Didn't attach any meaning to anything. And while I was essentially kind of holding the space using that subliminal, all of the situations lined up for me to receive what I wanted. Did you enjoy this? I feel like this was actually really fun to film. Let me know if you want me to make more of these types of videos where I share what I've manifested, how I did it, how it all happened. I feel like they could be really inspiring. Again, I don't want it to come off in like a show off, look what I could do way. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and also hit that bell notification so you can get notified whenever I post a new video. You can also find me over on Instagram and TikTok and Threads at MK Magic Mindset. And if you want to learn more about me, my programs, how to work with me and more, you can visit my website at mkmagicmindset.com and I will see you in the next one.